This video is focused around mods to improve the immersion of Skyrim and make it into a better RPG experience. So I'm going to be overhauling the mechanics, the visuals, and the NPCs to achieve that. The video is split into sections, so you can skip to the part you need, and there's a load order in the description if you want to download the whole thing. First of all, I'm going to cover the mods which overhaul the core mechanics of the game, starting with Mannaz and Freyr. Mannaz integrated races of Skyrim fully overhauls the racial abilities and powers in the game. They feel a bit more diverse and exciting when compared with the vanilla abilities, making the race you play feel more relevant and impactful. The active effects are similar to those in vanilla, but modified to feel more distinct. For example, Argonians still have their regeneration, but instead of it being an activated ability that can be used anywhere, it automatically triggers when you're underwater. And Imperials still find more gold and valuables, but now they can also bribe humanoid enemies to fight for them for a small period. Orcs and Khajiit also have an ability that causes orc strongholds or Khajiit caravans to stock higher quality and more plentiful gear, making them more valuable to seek out. The mod also adds in a selection of activated abilities which feel really cool to use. They're generally a bit less powerful, but can be used more than once a day, so they feel like a more active part of your playstyle. Some examples are the Argonians, which get Caustic Spit, which costs 75 magicka to spit some venom, draining a target's armor and magic resistance. Orcs get an ability called War Stomp, which costs 100 magicka and triggers when you jump from a high place, taking 75% less fall damage and staggering or knocking down all of the nearby enemies. High Elves get an ability called Fairy Light, which can be used once per battle to dispel a single target's active spells and drain their magicka, making you much more dangerous against pure mage enemies. To go with Mannaz, we have Freyr integrated Standing Stones of Skyrim, which overhauls the Standing Stone abilities. But what makes this mod special is how it integrates with Mannaz, featuring a different set of abilities for each race, meaning the stone you end up going for will probably be different for each character, giving you more of an incentive to seek them all out on each playthrough. The integration with Mannaz also allows the abilities to merge with the racial powers really well. For example, the Thief Stone, when used by a High Elf, changes the Fairy Light power to disarm the target instead of crippling their spells. The main reason I like these combinations is it allows for much more unique playstyles depending on the race you choose. Argonians are given lots of buffs around water, making it tactical to draw enemies to rivers and lakes when fighting. Bretons can end up in a unique loop that involves collecting hearts to overcharge spells. Dark Elves gain charges from fire damage which can be released against targets, and Wood Elves are built around using their wild sensibility to locate and debuff enemies before engaging in open combat. This is a fantastic combination and I'd highly recommend using both mods together. Next we have Vokrii, which is going to overhaul the perks of the game to feel a bit more exciting and impactful. This is a lightweight alternative to the Ordinator mod by the same creator, but I find Vokrii does a better job of improving the experience without becoming overwhelming or forcing you to become more specialised than I tend to like to be. The main overall improvement you'll notice with this mod is the skills now scale with your skill level, so you'll benefit from leveling the skills throughout the full game. This mainly affects the damage of things like weapons, offensive spells, and armor points, so you'll become passively stronger from just the first perk in a tree as you grow better with the skill over time. There are also some improvements that are essentially mini patches. For example, there are now skills that increase the number of times poisons can be used once they have been applied to a weapon, making them much more convenient than the vanilla version. Armor perks have also been changed to not require a helmet, so we won't be needing a separate mod for that, and speech is changed to allow for more exciting perks when investing in businesses, like rare items and powerful weapons. And the skill tree gains experience when shouting, so it's a bit more manageable to level up your speech. Then we have Valravn, which is going to overhaul the combat of the game. There are a fair few mods available that target this area, but I tend to like Valravn in most cases because it feels like a more lightweight option when you use it. This mod adds a handful of improvements to the combat of the game. Enemy AI is upgraded, making them more aggressive and smarter in battle, so now you'll find that enemies are more likely to swarm you when they have the numbers, and more likely to use bash attacks to interrupt power attacks, and they'll use power attacks to counter your blocks. Then there are some additions to incentivize similar strategy from you. Attacks of opportunity allow you to do additional damage if you attack whilst your opponent is doing something like casting a spell or drawing a bow, and attacks from behind or straight after staggering also do more damage. Finally, there are some changes to stamina to make it more of an active resource. There is now a minimum stamina requirement for power attacks, so you can't just power attack on one stamina anymore. The weight of the weapon you use when power attacking also has more of an effect on how much stamina it costs, and holding a bow drawn for long periods of time will start to cost you stamina, so you have to be a bit quicker when you're aiming. I really like how this makes stamina something you need to pay attention to. With the way combat works in vanilla, I feel like you can just unload power attacks without any repercussions, but in Valravn you have to be a bit more strategic with your attacks, and think more about enemy positioning. To improve on the combat experience even more, we have Know Your Enemy, which adds in a resistance and weakness system to the game. All creatures now have a set of traits that determine what weapon and damage types will work against them. So for example, bears have the trait Big, which gives a small resistance to most damage types, and a larger resistance to blunt weapons. Then the trait Furred gives a resistance to frost, and the vascular trait giving a significant weakness to poison. All creatures are slightly different, but you can start to figure out similarities as you discover which traits different creatures have. These traits extend to armour as well, so light or heavy armour becomes strong or weak against different weapons. The main reason I like this mod so much is because it essentially forces you to adapt your playstyle to different enemies. You can't just pick one weapon and stick with it throughout the whole game. For example, you can still use your bow against a lot of targets, but against Dwemer machines they're practically useless, so you're going to have to try something else. Next, we have Tonics and Toxins, which overhauls the potions and food in the game. The main thing this mod does is nerf replenishing potions, such as the potions of healing, to provide a similar amount of health, but over the course of 6 seconds, similar to how poisons work, to prevent you from just spamming potions to instantly recover all of your health. The mod also upgrades the effects given to you from eating food, to make it a bit more worthwhile to use. The effects are longer lasting stat regen effects, which are different depending on the food type. So food becomes something that it's valuable to eat just before entering a battle, so you have the buffs active throughout the fight. We also have Triumvirate, which adds in a collection of 75 new spells, which are split into 5 archetypes to give you some more options for theming when playing as a mage. The new archetypes are Druid, Shadow Mage, Warlock, Cleric, and Shaman, each with a unique playstyle and aesthetic, so you can make your mage feel truly unique. Then we have Summermyst, which is going to upgrade the enchantment pool in the game, with a wealth of more interesting and diverse enchantments for both weapons and armour. The items are fully integrated into leveled lists, so you can find them around in the world just like anything else. I feel like in combination with the racial and standing stone abilities, as well as Vokrii, these new enchantments give a lot of opportunity for much more unique build crafting. Some of the combinations are really fun, and promote playing the game in ways you've probably not done before. To help find some of these new enchantments a bit faster, we have rebalanced leveled lists, which is going to increase the quality and quantity of loot you find in dungeons. The main purpose of this is to try and make it feel like you're finding stuff that you'll actually use. I feel like in vanilla all you do is take anything that's vaguely valuable and then destroy anything enchanted so that you can make your own equipment. But now you're actually going to find gear that serves as an upgrade of what you're using, so the experience of looting dungeons feels more rewarding, and you won't feel as forced into focusing on leveling your smithing as fast as possible. Another effect of this mod is it increases the amount of gold you're going to make from running dungeons, as the quality of loot will be higher. I have a few mods later on which are going to work to balance this, so you won't just end up with a ridiculous amount of money really early on. Next, we have Thunderchild, which is going to focus on expanding the shout system in the game, adding in a whole new bunch of shouts built from the existing words of power. The mod adds in a new meditation minigame to add an additional challenge to learning the new shouts, as well as a handful of totems scattered throughout the province, which allow you to use the new shouts. To expand on the non-Dragonborn abilities, we also have Wintersun, which adds a full faith system into the game, allowing you to become a follower of your chosen deity, granting different powers. The mod lets you become a follower of any of the 9 divines, as you would expect, but you can also become a follower of the Daedric princes to cover the most common religions amongst Dark Elves and Orcs, the Elven ancestors to cover High Elves, the Yukudan pantheon for Redguards, the Khajiit moon gods, and a few others, including the histories for Argonians. The race you play will dictate the options you have for a starting religion, and some of them can't be followed unless you are a specific race, which adds to the impact that your choice of race makes even more. Each deity still comes with a passive effect from praying at a shrine, but once you become a follower you can pray anywhere, giving you another effect usually built around your favour score, which increases as you perform actions that are in keeping with the tenets of your deity. For example, if you follow Stendar, you gain favour by clearing dungeons, slaying undead and Daedra, completing miscellaneous quests, and you lose favour if you break the law or use summoning magic. Then, with this favour, you can pray to gain an increase to attack, defense, and healing for 3 battles. Then we have Alternate Start and the New Beginnings add-on, which allows you to skip the opening set piece in favour of a different start. You can begin as a member of any of the factions, a house owner, a tavern patron, bandit, mercenary, forsworn, necromancer, or vampire thrall, amongst many others. There are also some new starts available which link directly to your race. You could be an Argonian dock worker, travel as part of a Khajiit caravan, start in an Orc stronghold, or as a member of the Thalmor, which builds on the earlier mods to make an even more immersive experience. Next, I have 2 mods to overhaul travel, starting with Convenient Horses, which makes horses much more useful. They can now be given some basic commands, they can develop in power, and you can give them items to carry for you. With some of the new Guardianstone abilities and perks from Vokrii, you can now create a surprisingly effective mounted build to use your horse in combat like a real knight. I have a fair few mods coming up that will be expanding on encounters found out in the wild, so this is a good option to allow for more convenient travel without missing anything. Then we have Campfire, which, as you might have guessed, allows you to build campfires in the wild. You can use the fire to keep warm, cook food, tents are available to rest in, and you can develop your survival skills. And you're also going to want to bring Camper's Workbench, which allows for creating crafting benches as part of your camps. This mod adds a lot of useful stuff if you're planning on playing in survival, and even if not, it's a really good one to bring along for immersion or just a portable bed. Next, I have some quality of life mods. These are relatively small improvements to a variety of aspects of the game. First of all, we have Kontrol, which is an absolute must for anyone playing on controller. The mod essentially just adds in a bunch of shortcuts which can be used to open menus quicker or perform quick saves without pausing. But the most useful addition is the ability to bind up to 8 items or spells to your D-pad, allowing you to hot swap weapons or drink potions without having to open any menus. When you install this mod, make sure you install the Kontrol updated version, because the original has been broken since the paid mods update, and could potentially break your entire load order. Then we have Dynamic Camera, which allows you to alter the distance and angle of the camera relative to your character. I tend to like having it slightly further back in combat, so it feels a bit less claustrophobic, and you can adjust the angle to sit on the right or left shoulder when using ranged weapons to make third-person shooting feel a bit nicer. We also have the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch, which you're probably familiar with. It adds a whole bunch of small bug fixes and is a requirement for quite a few other mods, including several covered in this video, so you're definitely going to want to bring it along. Now, as I mentioned right in the first section of the video, I have a couple of mods that are going to reduce the amount of gold you find when running dungeons, as a means of countering the inflation that you're going to get from rebalanced leveled lists. The first mod to achieve this is Coins of Interesting Natures, which adds in new coins designed to make the world feel more immersive. So, for example, instead of finding gold in Ancient Nord ruins, you would find Ancient Nord drachas, and in the Forgotten Vale, you would find a Falmer Malari. There are currencies for all of the major dungeon types, and they help add a bit of flavour to the game, and the new coins are rarer and slightly less valuable than gold, which will reduce the amount of passive gold that you're going to find clearing dungeons, to help balance out the better loot that you'll be finding. The other mod I'll be bringing is Economy and Crime, which overhauls the economy to make a lot of things more expensive in the beginning of the game, but the amount that prices go down as you level speech is now higher than in the vanilla, making it a more valuable tree to invest in. Now looking at the survival mode, we have Sensible Survival Mode, which allows you to configure the survival mode to suit your preferences. You can do things like disable the temperature mechanics and change the intensity of the different elements you need to deal with. Then, if you aren't planning on using the survival mode, we have Sleep to Level Up, which implements the survival mode feature, preventing the level up from triggering until the next time you sleep. To go with this, we also have Extended Stay, which allows you to book a room in taverns and inns for multiple nights at a time, to make it feel a bit more convenient and immersive if you're planning on playing as something like a bard or a wandering mercenary that would spend a lot of time staying in taverns. With survival mode and a lack of fast travel in mind, we also have 7,000 Steps Bypass, which adds a totem allowing for instant travel from Ivarstead to High Hrothgar, and Volkihar Balcony Shortcut, which adds a door leading to the balcony from the tower outside Castle Volkihar. Both of these mods just make High Hrothgar and the Solkarn a bit less tedious to repeatedly visit when playing in survival mode or without fast travel. Then we have Reading is Good, which overhauls how skill books work. Instead of giving you an instant skill increase, they offer a passive XP bonus in that skill. Also, because the buff is permanent and because it stacks, it gives you much more of an incentive to actually seek out all of the books related to a skill. To go with this, we have Immersive Leveling, which aims to remove the times in which you feel like you're forced to grind specific skills in order to improve your character's power. The way it works is simply increasing the rate at which certain skills level up, mainly smithing, alchemy, and enchanting, to hopefully leave you in a situation where you're going to passively build up the skills just by playing the game. To expand on this a bit more, we have the Art of Smithing, which is going to improve the blacksmithing system in a lot of ways. You can install this as a single mod, or using the individual units, so you can choose which parts you want. I would suggest taking everything except for Smeltdown, which is cool, but I find it can be a bit overpowered for regular playthroughs. And we won't be using the super simple smithing overhaul as it clashes with Vokrii and isn't really needed alongside it. Now moving away from leveling changes, we have some more general improvements. With Convenient Crossbows, which simply makes crossbows craftable without being a member of the Dawn Guard, and adds them to leveled lists, so you'll run into enemies using them out in the world. Then we have Left-Hand Rings, which allows you to wear 2 rings at once to create more opportunities to utilise the new enchantments added by Summermyst. Next we have J-Serpa's quest expansion, which adds some improvements to a bunch of quests to make them more immersive. For example, the quest Innocence Lost is overhauled. I always thought it was weird that the Dark Brotherhood quest starts with Astrid trying to convince you to be cool with murder, but the first thing you have to do to get to that point is murder someone because a kid dared you to. So that's something this mod fixes for that quest and some others. Then we have the Civil War Quest Immersion Bundle, which mostly overhauls the way camps are set up and what options you have available whilst there. Next we have Improved Companions, which features some bug fixes for the questline, as well as general improvements to allow for more options when you play through. And finally we have Buyable Golden Claw, which lets you purchase the Golden Claw from the Riverwood Trader, so you can collect them all without having to steal. Then looking at the NPCs found in cities, we have Immersive Citizens, which adds more routine to the characters found throughout Skyrim. They will do things like eating and praying, so now characters like mercenaries that normally stay in one place will wander around. Guards will go inside the tavern once their shifts are done, and citizens will actually run from danger instead of trying to fight a dragon by themselves. To go with this, we have more tavern idols, which adds more places for NPCs to sit and stand in taverns. And better sandboxing for NPCs makes it easier for them to travel around buildings, so you will find more NPCs venturing up and downstairs. Next is Immersive Persuasion, which replaces the dialogue options when persuading and intimidating people to be more immersive. It also removes the tags like bribe and brawl, so you're just going to have to figure out what your best option is based on the dialogue itself. Then we have Realistic Conversations, which causes the conversations NPCs have with each other to fade in and out of earshot a bit more seamlessly as you walk through populated areas. Now, I want to upgrade the experience of travelling between locations by making the roads and wilderness look a bit nicer and feel more populated with extra things to do. So to start with, we have Northern Roads, which is going to do a lot to improve the visuals of Skyrim's pathways. First of all, the roads are fully retextured to offer a bit more variety to the different holds. The bridges have way more intention behind their design, made to reflect the locations that they appear in. Riverwood, for example, has a simple bridge made of wood. Whiterun has much larger bridges with bits of cargo littered around, and some bridges out in the wild are collapsed and broken. There are plenty of extra things added besides bridges as well. All along the roads there are little things like fences and bits of wall, archways and better looking signposts, but there are also some much larger additions like fort ruins, some of which have been repurposed into hold border gatehouses. The main thing I like about this mod is how every hold has stuff in it to suit its theme. The Reach has more evidence of Dwemer ruins, Eastmarch and Winterhold have more ancient Nordic stuff, and Harfingar has much more military infrastructure dotted around for the Imperial CUs. So you feel like you're getting a different experience as you travel around the province. Then to build on this, we have some of the Schlitz's settlements to add new villages around the land. For compatibility reasons, the full collection won't work, so we're just going to be using Ambergard, Amel Village, Dunpar Wall, Granite Hall, Greymoor, Lanelton, Oakwood, Reich Corrugate, and Stonehills. These new locations come with NPCs, shops, and taverns to give you some new places to visit on your travels. To add even more to find, we have Skyrim Battle Aftermath, which leaves some large battlefields around Skyrim, each with a different story and theme. Some of these are civil war battles, some are between individual holds, and one is a particularly cool naval battle with large warship wreckages scattered near the coast. We also have S606T's lore series, which we're going to be using for two things. First of all, the Guardian Stones are going to be retextured to look more ancient and magical. Then we're going to get some Oblivion Gates dotted around Skyrim as remnants from the Crisis 200 years earlier, just to make Skyrim feel a little bit more connected with the game it follows on from. Moving on to the world textures, we have Luxuriant 2 Lush, which retextures the trees and grasses of the world to look brighter and more vibrant. Then we have Norfire's Nordic Ruins and Caves, retexturing most of the underground areas of Skyrim. Here we're going to be using TLS to retexture the water in the game, as well as the wood used in mineshafts. And finally, we have Elsopa's HD hand-painted signs, which will replace all of the road signs with new colourful designs that add more flavour as you travel the land. Next, we have a couple of mods to add more people to the roads of Skyrim, to make travel more exciting. Extra Encounters adds faction patrols, travelling adventurers, and random citizens that you can cross paths with to make the world feel more populated. And Travelling Merchant Caravans adds more caravans run by a variety of people for you to trade with. Now, to make travelling a bit more convenient and exciting, we have Master the Summit, which adds new walkways and pathways allowing you to climb some of Skyrim's previously inaccessible points. It blends in brilliantly and allows for some great views thanks to the various landscape mods that we've got installed. To go with this, we have Immersive Shortcuts, which adds some caves and tunnels to provide quicker routes through certain areas. These tunnels are sort of like mini dungeons, and once cleared offer faster travel to certain locations. For example, there is one taking you through the throat of the world from Riverwood to Iverstead, so you don't have to go round every time, and it gives you some new locations to explore. To add some more decorations, we have Nordic runestones, which scatters 30 of these stones around Skyrim to provide a bit more flavour. Each stone has a different pattern on it based on the location, and they offer a waypoint for you so you can have an easier time seeking them out. Then we have Immersive Dawnguard Dayspring Pass, which improves the appearance of the entrance to Fort Dawnguard. Finally, to improve the overall visuals of the land, we have Enhanced Landscapes, which adds more decoration in the wilderness. More rocks on mountains, more grass, and things like lily pads and cattails in bodies of water, to make everything look more natural. Then we have Obsidian Weathers and Seasons, to add more noticeable weather to the world. Now you can find yourself experiencing full-blown thunderstorms and blizzards that massively change your experience as you travel. Finally, we have RAS Shaders and Effects, which adds water and frost particles to your character to make you seem more like you're part of the environment that you're in. Next, we're going to look at some mods to upgrade the appearance of everything related to your character, starting with the animations used, for which we have Leviathan animations. I've talked about this mod a lot, but it basically replaces your walking, running, sneaking, attack, and weapon draw animations to make everything look a bit more bouncy and much smoother. When you chain attacks together, it makes the attacks feel much more connected, as you can see the weapon's momentum carry over between swings. To go with this, we also have Smooth Block Animation Replacer, which I mainly like because unlike other block replacers, I feel like this one makes an effort to actually get as much of you as possible behind the shield, so it looks a lot better. Then there's Smooth Jump Animation Replacer, to make your jump look a bit more authentic with a bit more energy. Next, we have a couple of player animations to improve immersion in social areas. First of all is Immersive Interactions, which causes you to do a small animation when doing things like opening doors, interacting with Guardian Stones, purchasing things, and a bunch of other stuff. The animations will only trigger when you don't have weapons or spells drawn, so it doesn't interfere with combat at all, and will only really be present when you're towning. To go with this, we have Head Tracking and Emotions, which causes your character's head to automatically turn to face NPCs as they talk to you. Then we have Lore and Gender Heights, which affects the height of your camera to more authentically reflect the race you're playing. So now Wood Elves and Khajiit are smaller, and High Elves and Nords are taller to make your choice of race feel more immersive. Now looking at the textures for creatures, we have Divine Skins, which is going to improve the skin, fur, and scales of all the races in Skyrim. To go with this, we're going to be using Sivas Ran, which is a retexture of all the animals and monsters found out in the world, making them look much more threatening in most cases. In particular, I really like the designs of giants and mammoths, which now have matching war paint covering them. The mod also covers dragons, adding a bit more colour to them, but to make them even more threatening, we're going to be using House of the Dragon Skeleton Edit, to make them larger with much greater wingspans. Next, we have some mods to improve the look of our gear, starting with Old Kingdom, which replaces all of the armour and weapons in the game with recoloured versions that look so much better. It also replaces some unique artifacts like the Dragon Priest masks and the Thane weapons, which are now given unique names and designs to make them actually worth collecting. To go with this, we have Armour Variants, which is going to add in a bunch of slightly different versions of gear found throughout Skyrim. The main reason I have this mod is because it does a great job of making enemies look more interesting, as they all now have slightly different armour to each other. This mod also works with Old Kingdom, so all of the variants will benefit from the recolouring. Then we have Elsopa Quivers redone, and Aeneid Banners and Shields, which are going to add some more stylistic designs for quivers and shields that look way better. Now looking at the player model, we have visible favorited gear, which equips all of the weapons listed in your favorites to your character, so you can actually see all of the stuff that you plan on using. Then we have just shields on back, which does exactly as it sounds. If you have a shield equipped, it will be placed on your back when not drawn. To install this, you're going to need the simple workaround framework, which provides a base for a couple of other mods that I'll be talking about later. Then we have cloaks and capes, which adds in a bunch of craftable capes that are also mixed into leveled lists, so you can find them naturally out in the world. The main reason I have this mod is because it gives the guards really high quality cloaks, matching the hold that they're in, which look fantastic. Next we have Nordic UI, which is going to make the menus look a bit nicer and open a bit faster. It also makes the HUD look a bit cleaner, with new stat bar designs and a new compass. Then we have Modern Perk Interface, which is going to make the skill screen look a bit cleaner, and Lockpicking Interface Redone will add a more stylistic design to the locks you see when lockpicking. We also have Immersive Quest Menu Dark, which is going to make the pause screen look like it's written on a note in-game. Now, looking at the map, we have a quality world map, which is going to make your map look much nicer. I really like how the colours of the different terrains are much more pronounced, so the yellow tundra of Whiterun is more clearly defined and separate to the greener regions like Falkreath and the Reach. There are a few different variants available, but the one I always go for is clear with stone roads. Then we have pastel map markers, now appearing in different colours for different holds and location types, which is a nice touch. Finally, looking at the loading screens, we have TES Legends loading screens, which replaces the 3D models used with a selection of artwork from the Elder Scrolls Legends. Now we have a few mods affecting the aesthetics of combat, and the various creatures you're likely to encounter. Starting with Hit FX, which alters the blood splatter effect, which triggers when you attack something, and adds some sparks to make your combat look more exciting, and to make the attacks more impactful. To go with this, we have Weapon Trails, which adds a sweeping gust of wind behind all your weapon attacks as you cut through the air. Next, we have Immersive Spell Effects Emit Light, which cause your spells to glow a little bit after you cast them, and Strange Wards, which retextures the ward spells to look similar to the ones used by Doctor Strange. To build on this even further, we have Eviscerate, which is going to replace all of the weapon sounds to make them more pronounced and aggressive. You can hear your weapons scrape as they're drawn, and the sounds of clanging metal is much more noticeable as your strikes land. But my favourite addition here is the sound of arrows whistling as they fly through the air. It makes shootouts like this one so much cooler, as you hear all of the arrows constantly whizzing past your head. To go with this, we're using Worm, which redoes the dragon sounds to make them more visceral and more present in combat, to make them feel more intimidating to fight. We also have the mod Nightfall, which is going to replace all of the music in the game, so you have something new to listen to. It's properly integrated into the music lists, so there's more exciting music in combat, specific tavern music, and general towning and travel music, including a unique track that only plays in combat with Nazim. Now, looking at your followers, we have Immersive Follower Framework, which is going to improve the things you can get your followers to do. For example, you can now set a preferred fighting style for your followers, so they will work more cohesively with your own style. You can also now bring up to 3 followers with you to create a full party. To go with this, we have Special Edition Followers, which is going to upgrade the vanilla followers with new equipment and styles to make them all look more unique. Then we have Move, which causes NPCs to back away when walked into, to prevent followers from blocking doorways as much as they normally do. We also have Hand-Placed Enemies, which adds a bunch of extra enemies in dungeons throughout the game. This is less overpowering than other mods with the same premise, adding just a couple of extra enemies here and there to make dungeons harder and more fun without becoming annoying. The enemies are also specifically chosen to match the environment, so you won't run into enemies that feel out of place. And that's the entire pack. My next video is going to be Paladin themed, so let me know in the comments if you have any Paladin mods that might be worth me checking out.